Yo, let's get into this podcast. So, in this episode, me and my sister Danisha Freeman, who I've known for pretty much the past 15 years, we're talking a little bit about marriage, in particular, marriage vows. And the question was forwarded to me from Nisha, which was posed to her originally from some people in her circle who were just kind of inquiring about marriage vows and what exactly do they mean and what is the extent of your marriage vows. And so what we kind of were getting into is kind of going back and forth about whether or not there is a certain limit within a marriage where you reach the limit and your commitment to your marriage vows, and if there's a point in which you can say, well, I know that I agreed to stay with this person, through better or worse, richer for poorer, sickness and in health and all those things, but this is just too much, or this I feel wasn't meant to be a part of that kind of verbal contract. Whether and what came up was sometimes some of the physical abuse that people endure in their relationship, or if there's different levels of cheating and how much is too much, and how much allows you to at some point say, look, this is not what I was talking about and this is a little too much. And she was talking about how some people they really wonder or aren't sure exactly what is the limit, if there is one. This conversation went a lot longer than what I ultimately included in this episode, because I feel like the topic that we were speaking on is very multi-layered, is very multifaceted, and it's too much to cover in one session. And we kind of talked about at a later point maybe reintroducing this topic, but on a panel, and maybe having a bunch of people where we can kind of go a little bit more in depth and get some of the opinions in real time from some other people, whether it be from their personal experiences or different things that they've heard from people in their circles. So for now, it's just a smaller version of what I want to expand on a little bit later. But I hope everybody enjoys it. Definitely leave some feedback so that I can take it back to the drawing board, and whenever we come back to this topic later, we can incorporate some of the feedback and some of the different things that you people have all had to say about this episode. But I hope y'all enjoy it. We're going to segue in right now to where me and Danisha is already talking, and I hope y'all are able to follow along, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace and love.
Some people come to me with their relationship issues, or but their marriage issues more so, because I have more touch with marriage. And they talk to me, I guess because I'm easy to talk to, I listen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't judge, I don't say anything. I speak when I have something that I need to say, but other than that, I listen more so than I speak. So I guess that's why a lot of people talk, because they feel like I'm not judging them and I'm listening to their issues.
Right.
But I hear them say, but this is my husband, and this is, I'm supposed to help him through this or whatever. What do for better or for worse for me? Because God don't want you to sit there and be abused, and He don't want you to sit there and be cheated on, and He don't want you. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
Like, how far do you take it before you be like, okay, listen, for better or for worse, like, so when you're throwing the vows out the window, like, okay, listen, like, I know everybody takes their vows seriously when they get married. And
But hold on, though, because I don't feel like that. I don't feel like everybody do take their vows very seriously. I feel like the majority of people nowadays, when they take their vows, all they're really focusing on is centering around the day and the event. Because be honest, when most people take their vows, they're not looking far enough ahead to that time when better becomes worse. All they're looking at is, I'm so in love, this is my day, this is the person I'm marrying. They're not looking to, see, here's the problem I have, because on the level that you're speaking of it, when you be like, somebody getting abused physically and all of that, that I think is a different thing. I honestly don't believe, anyone who's a Christian and who has their faith or whatever, I really don't think that God meant for anyone to stay in a marriage if that is what they're going through. But if you're talking about just the everyday ups and downs of marriage, you have to think about why the vows are there in the first place. Obviously, someone had enough foresight.
Wait. Okay, go ahead.
I feel like, and I do think about this very often, somebody obviously had enough foresight to write the vows specifically the way they are. Because if you think about it, for you to put in your vows that you're marrying this person, you're agreeing to be with them, whether that person is healthy or sick, whether you're rich or poor, whether something comes up in that relationship or not, somebody put that in there for a reason. Because obviously you know that if you get married and you're intending to be with this person for the rest of your life, whether that be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's not realistic to not think that you're not going to go through something. But here's what I struggle with.
Right.
I struggle with the people who take the position that, oh, you know, like they'll do something to their spouse, whether it be infidelity, whether it be, you know, because there's all different types of fidelity. There's financial infidelity. There's cheating with another person. You know, people will do something to you, and then to get you to keep you from leaving or to keep them from having to deal with the consequences of what they did, then they'll cite the better or worse. But how I feel is, when you talk about better or worse, that don't mean you could do something ill to me and then say, oh, you should stay with me because it's better or worse. Better or worse means, okay, let's say if we're married and we hit a rough spot in our marriage, whether you feel like, you know, we're not connected like we used to be, we're not close, or you feel like I'm not giving you the attention that you want, or vice versa. See, that's what the better or worse means. That just because that is going on, it doesn't mean that you either get out of the marriage or you start engaging in extramarital type of situations that are just totally wrong. Because I feel like people don't have a realistic idea of what marriage really is. I think that's the biggest problem. It ain't so much, to me, the vows. I think people, when they take the vows, they're not really paying attention to what they're saying. That's what I think the problem is. Because
I mean, that's some people, because I don't know. Like, I know some people who are paying attention to what they're saying. Like, my girl just got married the weekend before last. She just got married. And she pays attention to what she's saying. She wanted to mean every word of it. So therefore, she had to have to change up some of the words so that she can see what she's saying.
Right. But that's somebody who would have but that's someone who has the foresight to know that, yo, these are serious vows. But when I say people don't pay attention, I mean the average person. It's good to say something in a moment because most people feel like they mean it. But then fast forward 5 years from now, will she feel the same way? Fast forward 10 years from now. You know what I mean? That's what I think the misconception is. Because it's impossible to say something today and be that same person 10 years from now, because we're always evolving, we're always changing. See, I think that's the overall meaning of the vows, is that you two individually are going to change as you move through your life. But regardless of that, you two are promising that whatever changes come, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be spiritual, whatever those changes are, that you two are supposed to grow with those changes together and find a way to keep that union, whatever you have to do together as a team to do it. But, whether people don't know how to do that, or they're just not prepared or properly trained, or they just have a misconception of what that means. Because you can't wake up in 2 years and be like, oh, I loved this person when we got married, but, now I feel that way. You know what I mean? I hate to break it to people who aren't married and who are thinking about getting married, but I tell people all the time, when you get married, please don't think that you're going to be in love with your spouse for the entirety of that marriage. It don't work like that. Love is not an emotion when you're talking about marriage. Love is... I
plan on being the same way the entire marriage.
You plan on being what?
I said I plan on being in love in the same way the entire marriage.
Well, but understand what I'm saying. There's being in love, the emotion, and there's the business of being in love in a marriage. You cannot realistically, as a human being, be with one person for 30 years, 40 years, and literally be in love with that person every day for those 30, 40, 50 years. It comes in stages. But that's what most people don't get. Learning how to coast through the stages where you are not exactly crazy about that person, or you love that person but you don't like that person because of certain habits or certain things that they're doing that might cause different risks in the relationship. That's natural. Nobody ever said you have to be head over heels in love with your spouse for 40 years. But it's learning how to get through those times together when you're not. Because we're fickle people. It's just human nature. Like, we have different moods. We look at different things, and we change over time. Like, it's just the way we are. But you could still be in love with someone, but people ride that emotion so much that when that feeling comes down even a little bit, they think everything's falling apart. And that's not conducive to a successful marriage. If you ask any old person, right, people that have been married for like decades and decades and decades, they will even tell you you were going to go through things, and you're delusional if you think that one person can meet all of your needs for the rest of your lives. We're not set up that way. And that's not what marriage is supposed to be about anyway. It's about finding someone that you're willing to deal with and help cope with through those bad times that's going to happen. But we live in such a microwave society now that if we don't get it now, we don't want to work at it. And if we feel like it's going downhill, why fix it? We can run out and find the next person that we think might have what we want tomorrow or the day after that. That's the problem. We don't want to stick with nothing nowadays. I mean, I don't know. I think it's real optimistic of anybody to want to be married, but do you really know? And not even you, the person, because it's both people. You both have to know exactly what you're getting yourselves into.
Right.
And I don't want to be like biased. I think us just being the type of people we are and being Libras and being spiritual people, like, we know, even though you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, we are the types of individuals who can adapt to whatever and be willing to stick it out and ride through whatever. But for everybody, that don't mean the same thing. You know what I mean? I'm the kind of person who...
But that's what I'm trying to get at. How far...
You said what?
I'm saying that's what I'm trying to get at. How far is it? Because I ain't lying to you, whatever.
I think as long as you have a partner who understands and who is willing to rock with you through whatever, then there is no limit to that. It's only when here's what I think the limit is. Only when a person stops doing their part to make the relationship successful, I think that's the only point when you have to really start to ask yourself. Like, because we could bump heads every day. We could have arguments, we could have disagreements, whatever. But as long as I'm willing to keep doing what I need to do and you're willing to do the same thing, I don't feel like there is a limit then. I really don't feel like that. I think a lot of what we define our happiness in relationships, we use social media and we use media in general to gauge what that is supposed to look like, whether it be from other couples that we see through pictures or videos or TV shows and movies, and we let that shape us into what we think a relationship is supposed to be. Because if you really are honest with it, most people who say they're unhappy in their relationships can't really tell you why, unless they're regurgitating some type of idea about that situation that they heard or saw somewhere. I'm not talking about people who are in physically or mentally abusive situations. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It just is what it is.
Hey, my nigga.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. No, the dude just, like, did this illegal time about to cause a fucking accident.
Run his ass off the road, B. I don't know. That's a good question. Do you think there's a limit? Do you think that there should be a... Okay, here's what I'm going to give you a theory that I've always had. Tell me how you would feel about this if this was actually made into law and this was the new tradition going forward. Here's what I think. I think that, and this is why people get mad at me when I say that marriage is a business, but this is why I say it is. As far as the government is concerned, all a marriage is a merger between two people. just like a merger between two corporations. That's why you have to take on, in most cases, the female takes on the last name of the man because it's one entity under one name for the most part. And that's why there's all these documents and shit that has to do with taxes involved and credit gets merged for the most part, and all these things come into play. Because if you're looking at marriage just as a sanctimonial union, why is all that needed? But the government looks at marriage in a totally different way. So when you get married, you have to have a marriage license in order for the government to recognize that marriage.
Right.
Okay. So why is it that a marriage license is literally the only license in society that does not have an expiration date? When you really think about it, it doesn't make sense. My driver's license expires, whether it's every 5 years, every 4, whatever, there's an expiration date. If I'm a doctor, I have to renew my license every so often. If I'm a preacher, I have to keep up with my theological studies and renew my priesthood or whatever it is every so often. Everything we do in life, every certification, everything that shows we are qualified or that we're a part of something, we have to renew that. So why not a marriage license? I honestly feel like we would see a lot more progress with marriage, and we'll see a lot less divorce and a lot less messy divorces if it was, okay, you getting married today, and this is your marriage license. In 5 years, your marriage license is going to expire. If the two of you choose to stay together as a married couple, renew your marriage license in 5 years. If not, don't, and you're no longer married, and that's it, and you go your way and I go mine. Because I just feel like... What?
I said because no one thinks of marriage like that. That's why there's no expiration.
But that's the problem, Nisha. No one thinks of marriage like that because of the ceremonious and the traditional views that we all have about marriage. But we have to face the facts. No one thinks about marriage like that, but when something goes wrong, everyone's running to get divorced. And now you have all these pop-up, drive-by divorce attorneys and these proceedings where now you can get divorced online for a fee. Like, it's not what it used to be. It's not what it was meant to be. So, I mean, I feel like at some point you have to change with the times. You have to. Here's what I think. I think if marriage had okay, look at it like this. You have a driver's license, right? Every 4 or 5 years, your driver's license will expire. You know that if you don't do certain things that you're required to do while you maintain that driver's license, that when that expiration date comes up, you will not be able to renew your driver's license if you don't have everything that you're supposed to have with that license in order. Whether you have a few parking tickets out there, a few speeding tickets, whether you didn't pay this or you didn't pay that, whatever the case. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, honestly, if I'm married and you're married, and we know that we want to keep our marriage, knowing that there's an expiration date, I honestly do feel like you put the pressure on people, I feel like their conscience kicks in and they'll naturally do what they're going to do. Like, I feel like people will be more inclined to work at something that has an expiration date. I feel like people are more inclined to not want to see something fail when they know for sure that there's a finite date of expiration on that thing. Like, yo, because I think the biggest reason why people fall out of love in marriage is because you get comfortable. And after a few years, you stop doing those things that you did to attract that person and to get that person to be into you. And let's be real, and I know men suffer from it the most. I will stipulate to that. But women do as well at a certain point. You know, you start wearing your little freaking hard mask today with your hair up and rollers and all of these baggy ass sweatpants, and like men stop paying attention. I get it. It's a comfort thing.
Really?
How would you feel as that woman? How less likely would you be to let yourself go, to gain that extra 20 pounds, to not want to look sexy for your man? How much more likely would he be to not want to lose what he got by giving you that attention in the beginning if he knew that, yo, in 5 years and 2 years and 3 years, this shit might be over? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that shit needs to really be entertained. I really do. Like, it may sound kind of gimmicky, but if you think about it, we live in a temporary society now. Everything's temporary. It just is the way it is. It is the way it is. Or if not that, then it should not be made so easy for people to get divorced. It shouldn't. It really should not. It should not be about money and all of these things that have nothing to do with why you two should have gotten married in the first place. I don't know, man. What you think about that? How you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know, bro. I ain't get that far.
I mean, it would be great. It would be awesome if two people could get married and deal with everything life throws at them, and that's it. But remember, too, we haven't really had the best examples because we as millennials, we've come up in a time where most of our parents, the reason why it's common to see single parents nowadays in single-parent households, and it's more of a surprise when kids have two parents in the home, is because, for the most part, the majority of us grew up in single-parent households. You know what I'm saying? Like, fortunately, I didn't have to experience that, but my older siblings did. You know what I mean? As far as them not having their biological father around, but the majority of my friends, only had their mother around. Like, we have not learned from the best examples. I mean, most of us, if you're honest, will cite our grandparents' examples of marriage more than we'll cite our parents because we didn't really learn from our parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a dying thing. Like, anybody's grandmother could tell you exactly how to keep their husband happy, and anybody's grandfather could tell you exactly what you need to do to keep your wife happy. Our parents didn't know that. So how could we? We're trying to keep traditions going that are the foundation of civilization as we know it. But because we don't have the training and we don't know exactly how to go about doing it, we're just stabbing around in the dark. And it's I guarantee you in another 10, 20 years, marriage isn't even going to be what it is now. It's not even going to be that.
I don't know. Marriage is... I don't even know. It don't even last year. Like,
you have more people now who are agreeing to cohabitate rather than get married. People are having kids, buying houses, setting up their future and building their families with no intentions on getting married in the near future. Like, that's being put on the back burner now. Because it's not a sure thing. Like, it's just too much of a gamble. And then you work so hard, and then you have to worry about if you do get married and that marriage does go, does dissolve. You have to worry about this house that we tried to pay for. Now we're fighting over that. The kids that we are trying to raise together. Now we're fighting over that. It's honestly, it's the bad is starting to outweigh the good. I hate to say it because I've always been a big proponent of marriage, and I got 9 years in, but that shit ain't easy, and it hasn't been easy. And anyone who's been married for more than 2 to 3 years, which is the standard time that they say most couples will not make it past, anybody who's been married for more than a few years will tell you it's a job. And that's what I think people don't get. When you go to work every day, you know that you have to perform, or you will lose that job. You understand? But when we come home from work and we go home to our spouses, we don't put in that same work ethic because we don't feel like it's a job that we could potentially lose. We don't feel like it's something that we have to maintain. But it is. But we don't feel like that. But why?
She's making my thing sing. Okay.
But that's a real question. Why do we approach even relationships long term? Why do we approach it like that? Why do we approach everything in life that we know we need to work at to maintain except for our relationships? You don't go to for anybody who's in college. You don't go to lecture halls and not pay attention and expect to do well on a final. You don't write a paper and not do the research you're supposed to do and expect to get a good grade on that paper. So why do you approach your relationship like it's not work? Like it's not like the end goal is not to get something out of it, which is the direct result of what you put in. Why? Why do we look at relationships the way we do?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I'm just listening.
I mean, we're supposed to be. I mean, you're a woman. You, from a woman's perspective, I mean, it's not just men. It's everybody. It's not just women. It's not just men.
Right.
What is it? Look at it like, what is it that the older generation was able to figure out that we can't get right? Do you think it's as trivial as because of the technology we have, and because of the fact that the world is so much smaller, and because of social media, and because of so many more distractions there are, do you think that is the at the foundation of why we can't get relationships right nowadays? Because it could be as simple as that. Do you think that's what it is?
You said, do I think, wait, come again? Do I think that?
I'm asking, do you think that the reason why so many of our grandparents and great-grandparents, the older generation, was able to figure it out, but we can't? I said, do you think that it could really be as simple as the simple fact that the world is a lot smaller, it's moving faster, the technology and the social media platforms that we have, could that really be, or the distractions that we deal with, could that really be what is causing us to not get it right?
No.
So then what do you think it is?
I think it's younger generation mentality.
You think what?
I think it's the younger generation. What are you talking about, brother? I think it's the younger generation and their mentality.
But where does that come from? If you only agree that
things, like, back in the day, our grandparents was more like, the men took care of the household, which they did. Nowadays, men don't do that anymore.
Right.
And the woman, took care of the home, and they were submissive to their husbands, and their husbands say no, it was no. Nowadays, the younger generation, they got talked back. They, you get what I'm saying? What story we going through?
I get what you're saying. So are you telling me that the surges of women who are becoming more educated and getting into the workforce and making more and more money and they're smarter and they're getting more advanced in their careers, are you saying that because of that shift in the family dynamic where women are leaving the home, you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it.
So you don't think that not taking place, or if that was reversed, you don't think that would be setting women back 50 years?
You said I don't think that is setting women back 50 years?
Yeah, so if women went back to the home and it was back the way that it was, let's say in the 50s, in the 40s, whatever, you don't think that would set women back 50 years? Because what about this feminist movement that wants to be doing exactly what they're out here doing now? Running for office and running for office and not.
There's nothing wrong with doing all of that. Hold on, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing all of that. Like, there's nothing wrong with a woman, running for office and being successful and living in corporate America, as we call it, I guess. But at the same time, you have to be able to juggle everything. You have to be able to juggle both, and most women don't.
Most women don't, and to be honest with you, and let's be fair. But let's be fair. But let's be fair, though. Most women don't, I agree, but most women aren't interested in doing that. You know how many women I come across now who will straight out say, I'm not beat to be at home doing this and doing that. Like, I'm out doing what I need to do for me. And I'll be real with you. I think that that's a big part of the reason for why things are the way they are, because I feel like I look at it in a lot of ways as a sort of castration in a way. Like men are being they're being emasculated because a lot of men aren't top earners in their homes anymore, and they don't have that same authority that men maybe had back in those times when it was more of the man was the head of the household type of situation. And I'm sorry, not saying,
I cut you off, but
yeah.
It's that also kills a man's manhood too. Like they feel like
it does
because the women are trying to dominate. Like, why? Why are you trying to?
Well, okay. Well, let's play devil's advocate.
We can do this together. If you can play your role, and I can play my role. You get what
I agree. I agree. You're absolutely right. And I don't believe any woman should let any man lead the family unless he's capable as a man to do so. But I also do have to play devil's advocate for my women, because for so long, let's go back 20, 30 years now, the trend is getting worse and worse of women who are left to be single parents and do everything. Try to finish school, try to work, try to take care of the kids. And I think after so long and so many women having to do that, it is hard to play back and be that subservient role when you finally do find a man. And I think that's why women push good men away, because they're so used to having to do everything. It is hard to let that guard down and play the back again and be like, okay, I'm going to trust that this person has me and has my back because I had to do it for so long. So I think that plays a part too.
Yeah.
You can't have a man not be a man in a relationship and expect him to do the things that he's supposed to be required to do as a man. But you also can't have a woman taking that role. Like, I see so many marriages and relationships where men are just not men. Like, and I don't mean in the sense of them being dominant. I just mean, like, men aren't making decisions. They're not confident in their decision-making. They're not confident in their role as the head of their family unit. Like, I see so many women taking the reins, and even something as small as fathers not taking their sons to barbershops anymore. Every time I take my son to the barbershop when we get our haircuts, you know how many mothers I see taking their sons to barbershop? Like, it's crazy. Like, what happened to, that was one of my favorite things growing up when I was a kid, me and my brothers going to the barbershop with our father. Like, that's a thing. You know what I mean? Like, everything is just crazy now.
Oh.
Like I said, we ain't never going to figure it out. I think the best approach is to do like what I'm suggesting. Let's cut this thing short. Let's put an expiration date on it and leave it up to the two people. I think you'll see a big
I don't know.
shift.
I don't believe this.
No, because I'm not saying you're married for 5 years and that's it. What I'm saying is it's up to you. Like, you're not going to lose your driving privileges in 5 years if you don't renew your driver's license. That's your choice. I'm saying you get married, you have to renew your marriage license every so many years. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to renew your insurance every year. When you go to the doctor for a checkup every year, you got to fill out patient information all over again. Everything in life, we have to recertify. Everything in life, we have to reiterate that we want this, that this is what we want to continue to do. What's wrong with that? Why is that a problem?
Yeah, except for that, I don't agree. I don't agree that it should have an expiration date.
But everything does. Why does everything have an expiration date except for that?
Marriage is forever.
But nothing is forever. And I think proof of that is what's going on in our society.
Marriage is until death do you part. You say it in your vows.
You say it in your vows, but I'm talking reality, the world that we live in. Most people are getting divorced, 50% of them. So obviously it's not forever. If it was forever and people were abiding by that, cool. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But God doesn't see it like that. I mean, unless adults, what the Bible says.
What happened?
He sees that forever. So even if you divorce and go and be with somebody else, he's still considering you.
That's cool. But you're coming at that. Yeah, I understand. I perfectly understand.
I'm coming at that at a religious standpoint, but that's
right.
It's a spiritual thing.
But here's the thing: you're coming at it as a.
Like it or not.
Well, but the thing is, you're coming at it as a Christian woman. I'm talking real world people who in their lives have to live their lives and deal with God later. I'm talking about people day to day, every day. I'm just talking about the day-to-day of it. God didn't mean for marriage to be all about money and you fighting over this and you fighting over that. Because if we're looking at it like that, then what about the people who will argue well in biblical times? People like Moses, people like King David, they have multiple wives. So So why wasn't that considered adultery? Because I actually looked up adultery, and the meaning of it in the dictionary, the way that adultery is defined in the dictionary is a person who is married and engaging in those types of activities with someone that is not his or her spouse. But what about if you have multiple wives? Why is that not adultery? Because you're still not being faithful to just one person. But you saw that in biblical times. That was the norm. Right. It's only in recent world history, and it's only a governmental implementation that multiple marriages is illegal. And you still have societies and communities like pagans where they operate autonomously from our government, where they still engage in that type of lifestyle. You have Muslims who still believe in that, and in other countries who still engage in that type of lifestyle. So are they not following and with their religion by having multiple wives? I think we're delusional if we think we can just follow our religion and not follow what goes on in the real world.
I don't know.
But I do acknowledge the religious aspect of it too. I'm not demeaning that.
That's the only way that I look at that.
But even Jesus said, render what is Caesar's to Caesar and render what is God's to God. You still have to account for what goes on in the real world. You still have to, because you have to live in it. And you can't be an angel among demons. It don't work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I'm not saying marriage shouldn't be forever. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that just like if you're a saved Christian, you have to profess your belief, right, in Jesus Christ and that he died on the cross for our sins. Okay. But if you don't do that, then God is not going to accept you on Judgment Day. Understandable, right? Does that make you any more or less a believer? But you didn't do what he told you to do. You're not necessarily not following God's law as far as pertaining to marriage just because it has an expiration date. Then if you and that person share that religious bond and you share that faith, then you will always renew those vows. You will always renew that license. It's no different than a couple who's been married for years and they renew their vows. It's no different. I just feel like it should be a requirement to renew your vows rather than just be a choice. I think it's a good idea, Niche. I don't know. I think I might have to start promoting that and see if we can get this going.
So there's so many questions that needs answering, and we make really good, solid points about these questions. However, we need a real radio show. We can take callers because we need a free answer.
Well, I mean, maybe you don't. I don't know if you really pay much attention to the podcast community. Podcasting is way more. No, hold on. Podcasting is way more popular than talk radio now. Like, it's serious out here.
You need that, but we need that live podcast.
Yeah, I like doing. I mean, that's good too. I mean, that could be something that could be done later, obviously. But I like doing it this way too. You know.
Us, me and you, just keep talking about it. I mean, you know.
Because the point is to have the conversation and people hear it, and then, you know, there's feedback that's given, whether it be through comments, whether it be emails. Like, there's ways to correspond. You know what I'm saying? But I think first is you start with the discussion, the conversation. Because we don't have the answers. We just talking. You know what I'm saying? We just talking about something that we see as potentially being an issue that we people deal with every day. How did that come up? Who were you talking to that came up in conversation? The whole thing about vows and all that.
I said I have multiple friends and cousins who are married. I have 3 cousins in particular who always call me with their marriage problems, issues, and stuff like that. And
right.
I'm not married yet, so I can't really tell them, you know, from experience. But I can tell them what I would do.
But what was the question exactly? What were they asking you?
Not exactly any questions. They would just more so talk to me, like, you know, what do you think of this? Like, or not even what I think of this. Like, say the husband is sleeping around, or, you know, people walking around talking about he got another family and all that other stuff, and blah, blah, blah. He would just be commenting to me and telling me, like, my husband is doing this, that, and the third, and, you know, people are telling me that he got another family, what should I do, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, people think that I'm stupid because I love my husband and whatever, you know. So
those are the kinds of things that kind of befuddle me too, because again, in biblical times, you don't think that women had those same thoughts about things and emotions, but men were allowed to have multiple wives, and if you were wealthy, that was a common occurrence. That's just the way it was. But now in today's society, it's not acceptable. So we are living in the times, even though you say it's about being, you know, all about your religion and your faith. We still live in the times, because if you go far enough back, those people were just as religious in their faith. If we go back to biblical times, and they still have multiple wives. It's about what the world is doing. You have to keep up with the world.
There's a New Testament.
You're absolutely correct. So here's the problem. At what point does it change over and what carries over and what doesn't? Because the only difference between the Old and the New Testament is now you have Jesus Christ saying that I died on the cross for your sins. Doesn't mean it's okay for you to still commit them, but now there's forgiveness for them. You don't got to burn lamb and, sacrifice, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do the same things you had to do before. But it still doesn't mean, I think it was just a more realistic way of approaching the world. I think it was an understanding and a foresight that, look, be expecting these people not to sin is crazy. We need to wait for them. A loophole, that's what it is. It's a loophole, if you're looking at it from a literal sense. It's a loophole. That's what Jesus Christ is, a bridge between knowing that people cannot be perfect and never will be, so let's offer them an option. That's all it is. And that's all I'm saying. Offer people an option, because we're clearly not equipped in a microwave temporary society to do anything forever. We're not equipped. We're just not. We're setting ourselves up for failure. I don't like seeing the divorce rate what it is. I don't like that. That's a problem for me, especially someone who has always believed in marriage. And nobody gets married to get divorced. So where are we going wrong? I mean, it could be education. Maybe start requiring people the same way that you require. I'm talking about the government right now. The same way that they require a married couple before they will finalize a divorce, that you take parenting classes if you have kids and custody is going to be divided between those two parents. The same way you are required to take parenting classes before a judge will sign off on a divorce. Make people take premarital classes before a You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's a smart alternative as well. Educate people. You can't do anything that requires the type of work and dedication that marriage does without educating yourself. Just like you can't do anything in any field of work or study that requires a degree without you going to school and educating yourself on that field. Just like I was saying to you earlier, the same things that we apply to everything in life, be it education, be it if you want to be a doctor, you got to go to college and med school, and you got to get your certifications, and you got to do your residency. We don't follow the same script when it comes to relating. Why? Because it's not a requirement. That's why. People will always do what you allow them to do, and people will always conform to things when it is required of them to do so. That's the only reason why I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting, because when you start requiring people to do the work, then they will start to do the work and see why it's beneficial. I don't pretend to know everything, but I think I do a pretty good job of staying well-rounded and pretty informed and educated, and I try to keep a realistic approach to everything. And it's just crazy to me. Like, I'm not gonna be a freaking pizza delivery guy and then step into a hospital and I'm asking you to let me deliver your baby. You're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. Where's your education? Where's your credentials? Where's your qualification? You know what I mean? Like, people are getting married and not being qualified. People are having kids and not being qualified to be parents. Don't get me started, because when I get started, I can go in.
Let's go in the hospital. Shut up. Oh my God.
I mean, I don't know.
That's the problem. Yeah, or woman.
There's a way to fix this, Nisha, but I don't think people are motivated to do so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, see how you just
Don't put me in charge of anything, because I mean there would be so many changes it wouldn't even be funny.
Cool.
Would that even be funny? Yo, sometimes there are very clear solutions to things. But if it's not beneficial to the establishment, then those things are never going to be implemented. Period. Point blank. Point blank. Period.
Right.
And then people get mad at me when I diminish marriage and talk about it in a sense of it just being nothing more than a business contract. But ain't nobody showing me nothing different.
Oh. I'm sorry.
You gotta show and prove with me.
Why do she look like Missy Elliott?
You what?
Was wearing a plastic bag. I'm sorry. Hold on. Don't you say that. You remember that video when Missy Elliott was wearing the plastic bag? And she was real bad. Yeah. She looked like something out of that video. Hello?
Yeah.
No, that's the first thing that I thought of when I looked at this boy walking out here in these purple boots.
No, it is ridiculously unseasonably warm today.
Yo. Ridiculous.
The end is near, my friend. The end is near.
I said she wearing black leather pants like they look plastic, like that video that Missy Elliott was in with the plastic bag.
Look at you. You're more entertained by that than what we talking about. See? People can't change nothing. I'm in awe that somebody was talking about watch that shit. See? That's what I said. It's too many distractions out here today. Your grandmother didn't care how Missy Elliott looked in a trash bag. See? That's why her marriage worked. That's why. All they had, look. Listen. All they had was their Jet magazine, and it was good. Okay. Back to that. Because I gotta go ready for this Ratchet podcast Adam wanted to do later on tonight. Going all the way in, he was giving me a little preview of him going in on why he don't mess with black women. And it's probably going to be because he's so serious about it. So you better get serious.
This is what y'all going to do a podcast about?
This is what he wants to do. I told you. My platform is driven toward people who want to bring whatever they want to bring to the table. I don't care what your grievance is. I don't care what your premise is. As long as you're willing to stand behind it and be challenged when I challenge you, I don't really care what you want to talk about. I'm here for all of that. I'm with that. I'm with all of it. So if you want to see forward thinking and progressive content, then you need to get your ass together, get yourself together, and let's do this thing. Because the fuck shit will happen. You ain't gonna be at the counter.
Podcast.
What?
Invite different people. I was telling my cousin about your podcast. She's asking, what do you do?
Everything, my friend. Everything. You ain't gotta ask. I'm on iTunes. I'm on Google Play. Subscribe. You can find out every week exactly what it is I do, and you can even subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Give me my bag.
I want to thank everybody again for taking the time to listen to this podcast. This is one of my favorite episodes so far. We really got deep into this topic, and I think it was definitely a much needed topic to touch on, especially with so many people who have so many questions about marriage and exactly what vows are all about. And I have, not just with Nisha, not just the people in her circle, but I have so many conversations almost daily with people who are married and people who are about to get married. And every now and then, me being in hospitality, I come across guests all the time who are a part of a wedding group and they're planning to get married, or they're at the hotel, for the day or two that they're going to be, doing their reception and exchanging their vows. And people do ask me, like, what is it like, the real world, day to day, like, not what you see in the movies, not the overly romanticized, depiction that has always been painted and portrayed to us since we were kids. Like, what is it really like? And it's work. And just like anything else, anything worth having and worth being successful at is work. And as long as we continue to put in the work, regardless of what that work is being applied to, there's really no other option but to succeed and be successful. But I think it requires a lot more conversation. It requires a lot more people to really, take the time to think. One, before you even exchange vows, and two, even after the vows have been exchanged, what are we really doing here? Because, like I always say, if we all stay together, we don't have to ever come together. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know, and I rely on you guys to filter out the bullshit and challenge me the same way that I plan to always challenge my people for the better. I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.